everyone. Great to see you. I'm not Vicky. I am Alyssa Walker, editor of Torch. It's a publication that covers our pending mega event era. I guess it's already begun because we had the Club World Cup stuff, so we're in it. And a lot of what I write about, you can get some stickers on the way out at the front table if you didn't grab them on the way in, but a lot of what I write about is related to getting our transportation system ready for many, many more visitors. And also ensuring that we have legacy improvements that will outlast all these games and be here for generations to come. So first of all, if you did not grab a donut, that's what we're doing here. Introduce yourself to someone nearby and say something exciting you're working on. What, if anything, you know about Metro's use of enclosed barriers, and how did you get started in your current field? I'll give you a few minutes.
Oh, am I supposed to go over here? I'm so excited. That and donuts.
Since I'm going to start the presentation, should I just introduce myself and then actually just introduce yourself later when I take over?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great place.
Well, we meet with a lot of contacts.
As you can tell, I don't do much to speak.
I was so interested in this. I think what's like one awesome fact about
It's giving away the key. This is the key fact, the key point of the presentation. Buses, on the if an operator is driving a bus with a barrier, he or she is 4.2 times less likely to get assaulted than operating a bus without a barrier.
Forward with the current job force does not make sense. Okay, so it doesn't seem like this is about this.
All right. That's a good conversation for 9 a.m., I feel like. What's one thing that someone learned about, or what's one thing that someone knows about barriers already or wants to share? What, if anything, do you know about the barriers, or what have you maybe encountered as a rider? Does anybody have anything to offer? Anyone? My kids really think it's awesome because they get to, like, when we get on the bus every time, they're like knocking on it, or like, no, I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about. They're like, hello, they're like, hey, and it's like they have all this really nice interaction. Not that they don't always do, but they're like, hi in there, hello. So I don't know if that's just because of the additional barrier, but for them it's created a little fun interactive thing to see which buses have the barriers, which now they all do. So it's been very exciting. Please note that the presentation is being recorded and live streamed, and then you can see it later. This is a breakfast series that has been hosted since 2017. Wow. I don't even think I knew that it had been around that long. Data Donuts showcases government projects and provides a space for technologists to come together to build connections. And thank you to Lacey for allowing us to be in this space and to respect everybody working. Start to make your way out at 10 o'clock. We have a hard out. Upcoming events. The next Data and Donuts, we will have John Neal presenting AI Context Simulator. That sounds, we don't know, but it'll be created on the spot by AI, apparently. And then keeping your calendars free on October 3rd. Hopefully you guys all have the information about this already, but Don Shoup, Distinguished Professor of Urban Planning and Parking Reform, Shoupista, the man, Shoop Dog. There's going to be a big celebration of his life. I believe the first part is like a book release type thing, and then the second is just like a celebration of his life. So make sure you put that on your calendar. Easy to find if you need to. Jobs, some people need them. There's many job boards that you can visit. And now I'm going to introduce our first speaker, We have two speakers today, both from Metro. I'm going to introduce Boris Suchkov, and then he's going to hand it off to Jason Thompson, and they're going to be telling us about this, I think, this pretty astonishing Metro project, not only at the speed in which it was executed, but also that it came directly as a demand from the union of bus operators, and that's a huge win when it comes to organized labor. Here's Boris.
Thank you, Alyssa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Boris Suchkov, and I'm the Senior Manager of Data Analytics and Intelligence at LA Metro's System Security and Law Enforcement Department. It's a bit of a mouthful. And I'll start off this presentation and then, like Alyssa said, hand it over to Jason, who's a member of my team. And he really did all the heavy lifting in terms of the data analysis on this project. So a little bit more about background. Most of you are probably familiar with Los Angeles Metro, the transit agency for LA County. It was founded, the modern era of transit in LA started in 1993 when Metro was founded by joining two different agencies, the Southern California Rapid Transit District and the LA County Transportation Commission. And today, Metro has grown to operating over 2,000 buses every day, and it's actually the second largest transit agency by ridership in the US, having recently surpassed Chicago. And then we have a ways to go until New York. They are 10 times larger, so. Yeah. The department I'm in, System Security and Law Enforcement, is responsible for security on Metro, and that's been a big topic, especially post-pandemic. So we have Metro Transit Security doing our Code of Conduct enforcement. We have Contract Security doing other tasks on the system. We coordinate closely with Metro ambassadors. If you have taken transit in LA, you've probably seen them. They are in green shirts, and they are more of a customer support function. And then there is homeless outreach. That's part of Metro, a department in Metro. Plus, we also contract with two police departments. It used to be three, but Long Beach PD, which was kind of a small piece, just the A line in Long Beach, they're no longer part of this operation, but we're LAPD and the county sheriffs are a big deal in providing kind of first line enforcement and security, which is going to be changing because there's a new police department we're standing up as part of Metro. The chief has been hired recently, and look out for an announcement soon about the new name Metro is, what the police department is going to be called. We're going to be talking about operator assaults. Unfortunately, with buses being such a large part of ridership in LA, there are a lot of operators that are exposed to unsafe conditions, individuals who might be not behaving in the correct manner on our system, and it is a real threat to operators, so this is something Metro has worked very hard to mitigate. A quick timeline. The first generation of operator barriers started, we got them installed back in 2013. They were partial and would not cover everything, would not completely block access to the operator. Initially, that was fine, but again, as happened all over the country, during and after the pandemic, crime levels have gone up in transit systems. In the case of Metro, there were 92 assaults on operators in 2019 and all the way up to 160 in 2023. There was a lot of conversations about this. There were some high-profile attacks on operators, and the union demanded protection in terms of physical protection for the operators, as well as additional security guards, silent alarms being installed, things like that. And early last year, the Metro Board approved an emergency procurement to install these barriers quickly. So it was a way to cut a lot of the red tape and actually get the entire fleet outfitted in less than a year. So the picture on the left here, the red area is what was open even after the old partial barriers were installed. And the picture on the right shows the new barriers, which go all the way around to the sides of the fare box. So it's very hard to reach through to the operator, and they're also taller. So now that Metro did accomplish installing operator barriers on the whole fleet, with the goal of providing protection from physical assaults, is there actually an impact, and how do we measure it? So our research question that was posed to us by management was, how effective are the new full-height retrofit barriers, specifically at preventing physical assaults on operators? And Jason is going to talk about the data analysis we did, how it came together, and what the results are.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Thompson. I'm a principal data analyst in the SSLE division under Boris. Boris is the one who voluntold me that I will be doing data and donuts. Before we go any further, I just wanted to define a couple of key terms that we're going to be using and go over, thank you, some of the departments that we had to pull together across Metro to gather some of these data sources and join them together. So the first of these is installations. Installations are basically a list of the Metro buses that were retrofitted with these fully enclosed barriers as of a particular date. Assaults are any physical assault on a Metro operator, and these can include things like punching, kicking, as well as other behaviors like spitting or throwing objects. Now, for us to count these as assaults, physical contact has to actually be made with an operator. So if someone chucks a beer can, if the can misses, that we don't count that as an assault. Likewise, if someone attempts to spit on an operator, that spit has to actually physically land on them for us to consider that to be an assault as well. And a bus trip would be an independent bus trip completed by a single bus traveling in revenue service. So each completed trip is recorded in Metro's Advanced Transportation Management System. And because we're looking at a period of 7 months over all of Los Angeles for every bus trip, this ended up being something like 2.5 plus million records of data, which is, that's a very large data set. That's something that Excel is not going to be able to handle. Excel gets pretty cranky at around, I think, 100,000 records or so. SPSS is not going to be able to handle that. So we did most of our analysis and data manipulation in R, which wasn't happy to have that much data, but it was still able to manage. So these different departments, the project involved pooling and joining the data from several different sources across all these different divisions of Metro. So the completion of the installations, that all came from maintenance, while the assault data, that was maintained by us over at SSLE. That's kind of our wheelhouse. Then these two data sets were the ones that were joined with the bus trip data, that exceptionally large data set that I was mentioning. So the common field that all of these have that we're able to link these together on is vehicle ID. So that allowed us to join all of these together. And then assault dates were measured against the installation dates, right? That allows us to determine whether or not an assault on a bus occurred before or after barriers were installed. The font on this is really tiny all of a sudden. All right, so in order to do this, we use something called a chi-square test of independence. Some of you may be familiar with this, others maybe not so much. Chi-square is something that you are able to employ when you're working with categorical data. It's used in conjunction with contingency tables to determine whether or not there's a significant relationship between these groups. And what those contingency tables would look like, it would have all of your expected values, right? If there was no relationship, and then all of your observed values. And then it takes the variance between those two things and looks to see if it's large enough for there to be some sort of relationship. All right, so in order to do this, there's a number of assumptions that have to be met for your data set. First of all, your variables have to be categorical, like I just mentioned. And for us, very simple, 2 binomial categories, right? We're able to boil it down to just assaults. Did an assault happen or not? Same thing with barriers. Was there a barrier in place or not? So this gives us a matrix of 4 different cells. Another one of the assumptions, all observations are independent. The value of one observation does not affect the value of another. So whatever happens on one bus trip has no relationship or bearing whatsoever on what happens on another bus trip. Those are completely independent events. The cells in the contingency table are mutually exclusive, and what this means is that for every event, it can only fit into one of these categories. There's no overlap, so no issue there. And the last one is probably the hardest one to describe, but I'm gonna do my very best. So in that matrix of expected values, none of those values can be 5 or under. They all have to be 5 or greater. And this is more especially true if you have a matrix where your categories have many, your categorical variables have many categories, right? Like if this was colors, you could probably have 10 versus like race, demographics, things of that nature. But because we only have 4 cells, basically all the expected values have to be over 5. With a data set this large, again, not an issue. So for interpreting the results, I have this brief table at the top for sort of an overview. You can see for this time period, these 7 months, reading across that first row, we had 29 assaults when a barrier was installed versus 116 for this time period when there was no barrier in place. And the number of bus trips was pretty similar, like 1.3 million versus 1.2 million. So this table under it sort of sums this up on a per trip basis. Without a barrier, for every 10,000 trips, there is about 0.94 assaults. With a barrier, for every 10,000 trips, it was about 0.22. An easy summation right here is at the bottom. The assault rate is just over 4 times higher when there's no barrier installed. The x squared value, that's the test statistic. A larger test statistic just means that there's a stronger correlation. 56 is a pretty strong correlation here. And our p-value just has to be under 0.05. That right there works out to a bunch of zeros, and then a 7. So we're well under the threshold for statistical significance. All right, so I also, aggregating this data together on a month-by-month basis allows us to now have numerical data. So I also just did a quick linear regression. Now, linear regression is typically used for predictive modeling. We're only using, 7 or 8 data points here. Not really enough for predictive modeling. This is just to sort of look at the impact that the installations had retrospectively in a different manner. You could see the line is going, it starts at the top left, goes to the bottom right. So that's a negative correlation, right? The number of installations increase, number of assaults decrease. And do I have a cursor here? That's good. This equation on the bottom, this is the regression formula. See that 29.7 is the intercept. So that 29.7 would be the predicted number of assaults on a monthly basis with no barrier in place. The slope coefficient is going to be that 0.0108x, right? Basically, this means for each barrier that's installed, it's associated with 0.011 fewer assaults. An easier way to say that is to just multiply all that by 100, and it's that little text box on the right. For every 100 additional installations, assaults are expected to drop by about 1. The R squared here at the bottom, 0.62. Typically for a linear regression, what that means is approximately 62-63% of the variation that we're seeing can be explained by the barrier installations. All right, so just in conclusion, the measurement of barrier efficacy indicates it's a clear benefit to the safety of metro operators. And we still have assaults. They still take place. The frequency at which they occur has been reduced pretty significantly. And the assaults that we do continue to see tend to be less severe. We don't get as many like punching, slapping episodes. We'll get someone who does their very best to spit on an operator, and maybe a drop or something will get over the barrier. Considered that to be much more minor than some of the other assaults that we had been dealing with. So we're continuing to explore further options to ensure the safety of our operators and passengers. This line graph here, this is just using 2 different y-axes to get these lines on the same graph. As installations increase, again, we could see a dip in assaults. Now, there does continue to be some variance with regard to assaults and things like seasonality, but the rate at which assaults are continuing to come up on our radar lately, they're still lower than they were at this point last year. So we do technically usually see seasonal variations. There's fewer people out in the winter seasons, more people out in the summer, more opportunities for these things to take place. But the chi-square is really good at sort of protecting against that because, again, we're just looking at the differences between these categories. And so with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and leave this open to any questions or comments that anyone might have. So you were first. Sure.